To S2H's webinar titled Streamlining Your Oracle Applications. Today's presenters are Mark Herbert, Chief Operating Officer, S2H, and Cindy Fung, Product Manager, IBM. Mark joined S2H in December 2008 as its first chief from 2006 through 2008. He was the first Chief Marketing Officer for Virtusa Corporation, a publicly traded IT services firm. Cindy is responsible for business development with IBM business partners in the general business and mid-market customer segments. We'll be emailing a link to the recording of this webinar to all that registered. Thank you, Mark and Cindy, for presenting. I'll turn the webinar over to you now.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Good morning, everybody from here on the West Coast. This will be a short webinar today that focuses on Oracle customers and their applications. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that customers who have been running Oracle-based applications for many years are now starting to face. We're now moving into quite a mature market for Oracle-based applications, and that has significant implications that we'll discuss. Secondly, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy to talk a little bit about best practices in the emerging practice of information lifecycle governance. So she'll apply some of the thinking that IBM has been going through as our partner in this endeavor. And then we'll talk a little bit about our solutions, IBM and S2H, around archiving and the products and some of the successes we've had. Okay, let me set the stage here. As I mentioned, customers who use Oracle are very prevalent, of course. And we've kind of entered into I'd say a real maturity stage over the last few years in terms of the deployment of Oracle-based applications and the fact that many customers invested heavily in Oracle applications, whether they're the packages or custom applications, around the turn of the century. So Y2K was kind of a defining moment for ERP and uptake investment in new applications. So we're now sitting with 10 to 15 years worth of experience with these applications, and it was always the case from the very beginning, from my early days at Oracle, that we always focused on helping customers get the data in. Never really worried very much about getting the data out, with a few exceptions. And over the years, Oracle has accumulated a large number of Oracle-based application packages, not only Oracle E-Business Suite, which was the original set of applications Oracle went to market with, but also the acquisitions of Siebel, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and many of the vertical products that Oracle has collected along the way as well. So we're now sitting with many Oracle applications customers have accumulated a large number of applications, and most significantly, a lot of data. As customers have been running these transaction systems over the years, invariably they have let the data accumulate. The only time they would kind of leave data behind is if they did a significant upgrade and decided not to upgrade all the data, but rather re-implement and kept those old databases behind, although those databases still exist. So the point is that that data accumulates and acts sort of as cholesterol in the applications themselves. It affects performance by and large, and so that becomes a big business driver for why customers are starting to worry about how to get that data out. It also turns out that that data over time starts to affect not only reporting performance but online performance significantly. And many customers have reached a point where it's no longer possible to just throw hardware at the problem. Moreover, once that data accumulates in production, we're seeing customers with 1, 5, 10 or more terabytes of production data, they tend to copy it excessively for non-production purposes. So it's very common to clone production for dev, for test, for training, for QA. And of course, there are multiple copies for backup and disaster recovery as well. So that data really proliferates. It ends up costing a lot of money not only in storage, which admittedly is declining in cost over time, but also in the labor associated with managing all that data and keeping it around. It's still true today that Oracle doesn't provide much help in this regard. There really aren't very good archiving tools in any of the packaged apps, or for that matter, for custom apps based on Oracle. There are some purge routines in some of the applications that customers don't tend to use very much because it doesn't give you an archive strategy. It allows you to purge specific tables, and it's only a partial solution that doesn't offer the kind of comprehensive help that customers are starting to need. Moreover, we're also seeing now customers start to pay more attention to corporate data retention policies with standard policies that require customers to get rid of data that they no longer need because it has potential liability in litigation. If you have the data around, you have to surrender it in litigation, but you don't need to keep it any longer than you really need to, according to your data retention policy. So that kind of sets the stage for this problem of data cholesterol. Not only that, but there's other business activities going on with the applications. Many customers are planning upgrades this year, and the upgrade process gets significantly complicated when you've got a lot of production data. Upgrading that data typically requires testing in multiple cycles. If an upgrade takes a weekend or a whole week, those cycles get elongated, and the whole upgrade project takes longer than it should. The upgrade process itself oftentimes has an available batch window that it must be done within, and if there's a lot of data, that threatens the ability to even do the upgrade within the available window. And then lastly, old data oftentimes means bad data, and cleaning up that data for the upgrade is also a pain. Not only that, but customers are also retiring a lot of applications, including Oracle-based apps. The retirement problem comes significantly from mergers and acquisitions activity. So it's easy to accumulate lots of old versions of applications, even the packages. And while we are seeing a certain amount of consolidation going on across those old applications tend to sit around for a while and cost money to maintain the hardware, the software, the databases, and everything else. And there's an opportunity to retire those and save a lot of money as a result. And as a byproduct, creating what we call a corporate archive repository as a way of ensuring that the company is complying with its data retention policies and having a single place where data goes to the end of its life. And so as a result, we're starting to see customers use archiving as a best practice across their applications, across their organizations. And it's possible today with technology like IBM Optum and others to take data from any database, archive it into a common format that's accessible as a common repository with your favorite report writer, so standardized reporting tools. At the same time, reducing the size of the production database, so improving performance, ensuring SLAs, and complying with audit, legal, and regulatory requirements around data retention. And in so doing, save some money. So that's the opportunity here. I'm going to now transition to Cindy and let her talk a little bit about some of the bigger picture drivers here in the industry. Cindy?
Thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some IBM insights with everyone. So one thing that IBM has seen is that the transition of big data and transitioning into an information-driven economy where data is the currency. That's where the value and the assets of the company to be able to drive and grow their business and to be able to compete effectively, and to also leveraging the latest technology trends. So what we see are the following key trends. First and foremost is big data. It's in the news all the time. It's really a result of enormous explosive growth of data. Some of it is very valuable, but not necessarily all of them. So how can customers retain that data to meet their needs, manage the inactive data effectively, and also make sure that sensitive data is protected so that big data lakes does not become a swamp. The other aspect is obviously the emergence of cloud, and IBM has recently announced many platforms in the development platform with the Bluemix and SoftLayer and CloudBench, and we're really pushing forward with the emergence of cloud as being a key technology trend for us. And one of the biggest inhibitors that we see of deployment in cloud is how do customers protect the privacy of the data? How do you identify personal information? And that's one of the key inhibitors in terms of cloud deployment. And optomasking can address many of these concerns. Another key trend is cybersecurity. I'm sure that all of us are seeing it almost weekly in terms of cyber attacks, and many of us have probably been personally impacted by it. I certainly have been impacted by the Target cyber attack myself and needing the new credit card issue. So in addition to customers needing to meet challenges with government regulations and compliance, we're seeing a huge escalation of cyber attacks. Now cyber attacks are actually big business. And so how do customers avoid these breaches and to protect their enterprise data and to be able to mask it while still maintaining a corporate policy of governance and protection? The fourth trend is around mobility or mobile applications. It's a huge explosion. I look at my iPhone and I can't even count how many apps I've downloaded. So mobile development really requires a much shorter release cycle, and that they also need high levels of quality and agility because the end user are not sophisticated users of technology. So reducing the time to market that's required to speed testing cycles and how customers could get the test data more quickly are key challenges that Optum helps customers to deliver. So we'll see later on that how specific Optum products can address these trends. In terms of cost and performance, the compliance issue continues to be a struggle for today's organizations. So increasingly, managing data growth, as Mark really well pointed out, is not only a simple adding more disk, but it impacts performance, it impacts operations, and it impacts complexity. And we're only seeing exponential data growth. So how do organizations can really manage this rapid growth and to be able to do it effectively, also reducing the cost at the same time? So increasing cost, as the volume of the data increases, the natural response is that we would add more storage. But that's not necessarily a cheap solution if you take into account the other costs that's associated with it. Poor application performance, I think, is probably the biggest impact in terms of just adding disk, especially for data warehouse. A query that could come back within seconds. If there's a huge explosion of data and the table size and the number of rows to be joined increases exponentially, the response time will also increase exponentially. And so in order to really manage your performance, and as Mark pointed out, to reduce the cholesterol in the application data, an archiving strategy to manage that growth is really essential. Lastly, in terms of retention and compliance, keeping everything in production is really not a methodology, and there's a lot of risk associated with exposing that amount of data to cyber attacks and even inadvertent data loss and exposure internally. I think that what organizations really are challenged with is that how do you basically make the data ready but only make those data that's essential to running the business and manage that and having a true archive strategy to basically keep the performance, reducing the cost, and also be able to be compliant with the legal hold and disposal of the non-essential data. Next chart. So the real organizational impact of ignoring application efficiency is really to avoid being in a reactive approach in managing the life cycle of the data. Taking actions after the headaches begin really impacts application efficiency. From a recent IBM survey, we see that the key areas our clients are identified as catalysts for their search for a better data lifecycle management approach is one, high capital expenditure, right? In the reactive mode, the solution is to add more hardware to maintain performance, and that's not enough. That's going to basically ensure declining performance and add complexity to their infrastructure. The other is decreased productivity. Poor application performance will certainly impact the business user's ability to perform daily tasks. Batch processes will likely take a long time and certainly creep into the working hours. And also, it's a bigger challenge and more burden on the IT staff and the DBAs themselves to tune the databases, and using disk storage as a response is really not where they want to be. So what does it lead to in the reactive mode? Is missed service level agreements, and that impacts revenue and how quickly an agile business could respond to market trends. And ad hoc performance management, without a clear strategy to really manage and optimize application performance, I think the result would be inefficient ad hoc fixes that basically drain IT resources. So as organizations strive ahead to stay ahead of the competition, a more proactive approach to data lifecycle management is what we need and what we propose to ensure customers could assess the data and they could trust the data at the same time. Next chart. We see 6 essential capabilities for customers to be successful in terms of how to manage data growth, how to govern their data, how to improve the application performance, and also how to basically control their cost. First and foremost, customers really need to understand where all the data resides and who have access to that data. So before a client can do really anything at all, or when they should do anything, they really need to understand what they have. I have partners that tell us that when they go and do a discovery, they find out that there are actually 70 different copies of the customer table populated everywhere that they're not even aware of. That's an alarm bell that I think most customers would take note. So the process begins really with understanding the web of information that's represented in your enterprise and where the data resides and where the tables are, how they're related across all the databases. You need to understand, right, where the data exists and what data elements there are, how the relationship exists within systems and across databases, how complex are the relationships across and between these systems and databases, and you have an understanding of the complex relationships between where the sensitive data is located and where the dormant data is located that contains sensitive information. So many organizations, they actually rely on the documentation, and that is actually an out-of-date and inefficient way of tracking where things are. That's a manual process that's pretty much based on what you know, so you could find it as opposed to finding everything. So what we propose is to basically use an automated discovery process that's included in Optum to help to identify all the data and to basically automate the results that that give you tremendous savings in terms of time and cost, and really have a broader view of where the data are, where they are, and how they relate to each other. The other aspect is also in terms of retaining valuable data and the disposal of old data that's not needed. So customers need to retain their valuable data, obviously. Excuse me. So some data is valuable, and they're definitely active. Excuse me, I have a slight tickle in my throat here. But there are also a large quantity of inactive data in the production systems. Excuse me, hang on one second. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So let me just recap. Forrester thinks, based on their studies, there are about 85% of production data that's actually inactive, that customers could actually, do a much better job of implementing a corporate policy and an archive process that archives the data to basically ensure that you have better performance without taxing on the hardware or requiring to add more hardware into the mix. So having an intelligent process that moves inactive and infrequently used data really delivers value and also helps customers to be more agile and respond to corporate needs. The third element is cleansing of the data. So in terms of consolidating and archiving data, it really represents a great opportunity for customers to improve the quality of the data at the same time, so that you can develop greater confidence in the data in driving business decisions. As part of the cleansing and also the duplication process, customers can actually better manage the data and the records. And once the data is cleansed, customers could reach what we call a to-be state, where a desired state when you could actually be able to sustain and maintain that quality and continue to monitor and cleanse that data as needed and archive inactive data as needed. So once that's done, the fourth element is how to transform and deliver the data. So the key part of consolidation of applications and retirement and upgrades as well as migration is transforming the data and getting it from point A to point B. Data transformations really are the heartbeat of any kind of business process. So data that's accessible from one application needs to be repackaged in such a way that it could be aggregated for other applications. And the needs of one application versus another to basically to be responsible and excuse me, and to feel confident that this transformation is delivered meets the requirements of the application itself and also the evolving needs of the business and help customers drive a competitive advantage, as well as to be able to record and track the data usage and what has been done to basically be compliant with government regulations, and as well as internal company security audits as well. So customers definitely need to feel confident about the data, how they're transformed, and how they're delivered, and also to be able to support the huge volume of information and to be able to take advantage of some of the built-in functions available with Optum to improve the cost effectiveness and leveraging the metadata-driven productivity that we could help customers deliver and using an optimal approach to deliver their needs. So the fifth element is actually managing and optimizing test data. And this is a key part of what we talk about in terms of archiving and also be more agile and be more responsive to your business needs. In terms of creating a right-size subset for testing, that's also another key element in allowing development organizations to be more effective in terms of extracting the data that matches the production usage, reflecting the latest state of the production environment, as well as incorporating changes in the new application, and to be able to extract and refresh automatically to creating the right size for testing. And after running the test, the relational compare on the result sets, on the new data set versus the actual production data, to see the exact differences and where those differences are, so that the customers could develop higher quality applications, reduce the time to roll out the applications, and be more responsive, and to be able to detect defects faster, earlier, and quicker, and solve the problem sooner. So part of the effective test management is the ability to protect sensitive data as well. I mentioned about the customer table earlier. Part of that is really creating subsets of the customer table for testing. Without really an automated process to protect that deployment and tracking that, and the creation of these tables, and also masking the personal identifiable information contained in a customer table, that creates a significant risk to an end customer. Just imagine if that table is downloaded to a laptop and the laptop is stolen or left behind somewhere, and someone publishes that customer information. The company is on the hook, and we all know what the impact is to Target in terms of the damage to their brand and to their business. So it's critical for customers to have a really robust strategy to basically protect the data in all phases, and that includes test and development as well. So next chart. In terms of database archiving, right, the other element that we also talk about is in terms of litigation hold, defensible disposal that Mark has alluded to. So government regulations also require retention, say, my charge card information. Banks are required to hold for a number of years. Healthcare industry, healthcare providers or healthcare insurance companies, they probably want to retain my patient information for historical purposes to see what my trend is in terms of my health. That actually affects quite a bit in terms of the volume of data that a customer needs to hold for the legal hold requirement, as well as to basically be able to drive their business needs as well. So when the customer archives that data, how do you basically protect that archived information in terms of masking the sensitive information, controlling the access, recording the access, and logging that access so that it could be defensible and it could pass audits and be compliant with litigation and legal holds. So Optum provides all of that control and logging information to help customers more easily and readily pass internal and external audits, and also to be able to protect this critical private information and protect their brand and their business as well. So these are the major attributes that Optum can provide in terms of data governance, managing data growth, reducing performance challenges, as well as helping customers reduce the complexity of managing data growth and provide them with a more systematic way, automated way, and more importantly, a corporate-wide single policy process way of managing their data and governing the data. That's for me, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate it very much. Well, S28 is one of the leading companies in the whole practice of archiving Oracle-based applications. We've been doing this for 6 years. We've done about 200 projects, and we're very pleased to use the IBM Optum platform for this. It's a terrific general platform for archiving data, not only for Oracle-based applications, but a lot of legacy platforms as well. It has dominant market share, according to Gartner, and we'll be happy to share that report with you. So we're here to say that archiving can really reduce your Oracle applications, EBS, and other applications upgrades dramatically, reduce your project risk, and also dramatically streamline your production database to improve performance and ensure SLAs. That service that we provide can be as an on-premise solution for you, but we also offer it now as a hosted service if you prefer. We have lots of options and pricing models for working together with you. I just want to spend a minute on the actual platform itself. So IBM Optum consists of 5 major products that are all part of the same engine, the same user interface, and specifically the archiving solution that we're talking about this morning is called Data Growth. It's in the lower right corner. It has a sister solution called Decommissioning for application retirement, again using the same common engine. And then Cindy alluded to a couple of other capabilities that the tool has that we haven't covered specifically in this problem statement, but that's test data management, which is used for subsetting production data into small subsets for non-production purposes, and data privacy, which is used to mask sensitive data in non-production versions of databases. And then lastly, there's an overarching discovery tool above it all, typically not used for the packages because we know where the data and the data models are, but more for custom apps that are perhaps older in legacy, where the institutional knowledge of the application is lacking, and so needs to be discovered, both the data model and sensitive data elements. We use this entire platform, and we do an awful lot of the implementation work around it. One of the key features of the Optum platform is its enterprise nature. I'm building this out to show you that it basically supports applications stored on any storage device, operating in any operating system, both distributed and mainframe legacy, across almost any file structure. There are a whole family of application templates that are in orange here and in green that come with Optum. S28 is proud that we actually build and maintain the Siebel, Oracle, EBS, PeopleSoft, and JD Edwards templates for IBM. So we have a very deep relationship with IBM in that regard, and that helps us out in the field when we're implementing these solutions with customers. That really wraps up our prepared comments. We're going to move into question and answer here in a minute, but just to wrap up, in summary, customers with older Oracle applications tend to accumulate lots of unused data that functions as data cholesterol and slows down production and costs more to maintain. By archiving data successfully, you reduce that footprint, ensure stable ongoing performance, minimize the overall cost of maintaining the applications both in production and non, and improve the overall agility of your application development, upgrade, release process. At the same time, you create a new corporate asset that we call a corporate archive repository. All data goes into it across applications. It can be accessed with standard reporting tools, and it can be used to execute your data retention policy, meaning you only keep that data around as long as you need to, and then you purge it. So it becomes a common platform for all of those things. And with that, I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Cindy, for presenting today. We're going to open it up for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the questions area of GoToWebinar, and we'll get them answered. Okay, here's our first question. What are best practices today regarding retention of old data to be archived?
Let me answer that, and Cindy, you can pipe in if you'd like. We are definitely seeing customers adopt now formal data retention policies. They typically come out of legal and they reflect regulatory requirements. Some industries have much more stringent data retention requirements than others. For example, in the life sciences industry, some kinds of medical devices, you have to actually keep that data around forever. It's typical to see a standard data retention policy of 7 years as a default, but then making exceptions on an application by application basis. So, so that companies now are governing their overall applications with a standard data retention policy that comes down from the top and is now starting to be implemented across the application portfolio, which is a lot of work, and to do it right requires a good platform like Optum that we've been describing today. But we're seeing large customers now adopt a platform like this as a standard and actually going through and applying the data retention policy to it. As an example, we just completed a PeopleSoft archiving project at a telecommunications manufacturer called Aris Group in Atlanta. They run, I think, about a dozen PeopleSoft financial and CRM applications, and they, we are in the process, we just completed actually an archiving solution for them that covers all 12 modules. So even though not all that much data was in some of those modules, they felt it was important to apply their data retention policy across them all, regardless of how much data was really involved. So companies like Aris are taking the compliance and regulatory aspect of this much more seriously, and I think that's a growing best practice. Cindy, you want to add anything?
Actually, I would. So one of the biggest trends that I see this year around Optum Archive is that customers not only concerned about managing the growth and really ensuring that they have a strong archiving strategy to maintain performance, they're also concerned about protecting the archive data. You know, I mentioned banking, healthcare, but you know, I think all industries are paying much more attention to protecting personal identifiable information because of the explosive, you know, frequency of cyber attacks. You know, some of them, you know, I think, you know, the recent U.S. study basically says that most cyber attacks are undetected until the FBI goes and informs them, such as in Target's case, right? They were totally unaware, and actually FBI went to inform them. So I think that customers are now much more concerned about protecting sensitive information at all levels of data, and they're not forgetting archive data anymore. So we're seeing that as a big trend, and certainly with the big explosive growth of data, they are looking at how to govern that data and what's the effective strategy. And one of the requirements that we're seeing more and more is in terms of, you know, how do they be able to retrieve the archive data seamlessly and painlessly, and what's the performance around looking up archive data and indexing them to increase performance. So that's another element that we're seeing more and more of. The third one is more of an emerging trend, is that you know, combining the first two elements where, you know, they need to protect the data, and there's a lot of data to be archived to maintain performance, and also to be able to retrieve that data, you know, seamlessly. Customers are looking to using Hadoop as a platform to archive that data. And of course, there's no data security around Hadoop. So that's where, you know, Optum comes in, and we actually provide, you know, a robust strategy around how to protect that sensitive information and be able to archive it into a Hadoop platform. So I see some of those are kind of emerging trends and what customers are really looking at.
Great, thank you, Cindy. Here's our next.
Yeah, I agree with all those. And I would add one other best practice that we're observing, and that is that when customers are now starting to think of this as a portfolio of applications and institutionalized process, there's a variety of different organizational models that are evolving out of this. If they start with one individual application, then we typically see the organizational owner is the DBA group or the application IT team that owns that application. But very quickly, if we start archiving multiple applications, then we're seeing a variety of different kinds of common or overall organizations are starting to emerge. Citicorp, for example, uses a center of excellence model where they've got a small team that owns the competence around archivement and the Optum platform, and they provide best practices out to the business units. So that's kind of a COE, service. More common, we're starting to see more what we're calling shared service models, where there's a centralized group that not only provides process and competence, but also does the actual archiving or masking as a service at the corporate level and oftentimes to other business units. And we're seeing that evolve gradually over time to a provision service, so it becomes more of a self-service model with a with a cloud-based service that's often done internally. So there's a lot of interesting organizational models evolving out of this. Anyway, a very long answer to the question, Michael. You can move on.
Okay. How much time does it take in preparing TestDB from production of size about 2 terabytes and number of steps involved for EBs?
Well, typically Oracle-based customers will clone their database for non-production purposes. They'll start with a copy of a clone, and they'll use the Oracle utilities for that. The toolsets like Optum are not ideal as cloning tools per se. Cloning something like that can take a matter of hours, sometimes longer, depending on the methodology that the company employs. Once you've got that clone, then the process of subsetting using Optum and masking can be done in a matter of hours or minutes, depending on the size of the subset and the masking effort being done.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. What size database is worth archiving?
We see customers archive databases starting at 200 gig and up. If it's performance driven, then we typically will see the databases be in excess of a terabyte usually. Although in smaller systems, especially on smaller boxes like iSeries, we'll see customers get into performance issues even in the 200 to 500 gigabyte range. But it's also true that customers like ARIS that are more focused on data retention compliance will take a smaller database, and as I mentioned, some of the modules, had 50 gigabytes of data, and we were still archiving them because they were meeting a different business requirement.
Okay, thank you, Mark. How are customers organizing themselves around information lifecycle management? We are seeing a handful of customers actually implement a governance function within IT. It typically reports to the CIO. It's kind of a governance czar role, but it has dotted line to legal and the CFO's office. I think that idea of information lifecycle governance as an organization, though, is not being heavily invested in today. I think it's a function that maybe works within the CIO's office, but isn't fully staffed more often than not. What is more frequent that we're seeing are some of these shared service models that I alluded to in my answer to the first question, where within the CIO's organization there'll be a team of, say, 3 to 5 people that own the core competence in the platform and actually will execute some of the work, or help guide other business units in executing that work. And some of that is supplemented with outside consultants as well. Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. To the attendees, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them. And Mark, do you have your, perfect, your slide is up. And if you have any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to Mark. His information is there, his phone number, and his email address. All right, it looks like there are no more questions.
So we will be sending these slides out to the attendee.
Yeah, exactly. There looks like there are no more questions.
Thank you.
We will be sending the slides out, and we've recorded the webinar, and we'll send the link out to everyone that registered and attended, registered or attended. So basically everyone that registered will receive it. And that pretty much does it for today's webinar. Thank you, Mark and Cindy, for presenting today. Great information. I'll leave the last word with you guys.
Well, thank you very much.
I want to say thank you for attending, and we look forward to following up.
Okay,
thank you.
Cindy?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.